My name is Spooky Deer, and I am on a journey to count every war crime in every Call of Duty. And gang, we are getting to some of the best, most nostalgic games in the franchise for folks with UNC status like me. We are in the golden era of Call of Duty. The first 3 games in this series were all fully centered on the Second World War, but Infinity Ward is taking us into a contemporary era of current conflicts. Modern warfare, if you will. I want to hit the ground running into talking about Call of Duty 4, but before we can do that, I do need to cover just a few things. If you're a series regular, you can jump ahead using the chapters in this video, but if it's your first time here, welcome in. Let me just say, 1, I am indeed playing through the entirety of Call of Duty in release order. 2, because of this, I'm applying a standardized current understanding of war crimes to all of the games, regardless of the era or realism of their setting. 3, these videos are for edutainment and discussion-provoking purposes. I don't claim to be perfect or exhaustive, and I'm certainly not a lawyer. Feedback is welcome, and I am continually learning more and fine-tuning this series as we go on. 4, we talk about war, violence, and other potentially upsetting things in this series. Please take care of yourselves, and please never mistake my tone or delivery as being dismissive of the severity of the topic at hand. Finally, I'm playing Modern Warfare Remastered for that good high-fidelity gameplay and for all of the extra little details that they added in. We should probably be petitioning Activision to do this with other games in this series, especially now that they're going to need to pad the bank accounts after Black Ops 7 flopped. But now, without further ado, let's count every war crime in the GOAT, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. There's something about these early Call of Duties and their iconic tutorials. Modern Warfare really is flexing just how big of a departure it is from the prior World War II entries. We drop ourselves into the boots of the new iconic SAS soldier Soap McTavish. We learn about the finer points of switching to our pistol because it's faster than reloading. And then we make a fruit salad for veteran Gaz.
Nice. Your fruit killing skills are remarkable.
Leaving the firing range, we are presented with extended tutorial scenes talking through various other game mechanics, including being given real grenades to practice with along with a noob tube. After slaying in the nades, we blow up this random dude's ex-wife's car.
It seems my ex-wife was kind enough to donate her car to furthering your education, Soap. Much improved.
After that, I chose to run through the obstacle course.
This isn't a bloody charity walk. Get your asses in gear. Move.
And we get a throwback to the first Call of Duty and crawl under barbed wire while a dude hip fires a saw over our heads.
You crawl like old people screw.
I dust the other soldiers since I'm the main character.
The rest of you bloody bonzes are going to run it again until I'm no longer embarrassed to look at you.
And we are finally introduced to the reincarnation of Britain's favorite badass, Captain Price.
Go easy on him, sir. It's his first day in the regiment.
Right. What the hell kind of name is Soap, eh? How'd a muppet like you pass selection?
We're training for our first real mission, and we have to run a kill house. I tried really hard to impress you all with my runtime, but other than establishing world building for the campaign, nothing else wild happens in the start here, so we fade to black into our first real mission. Crew Expendable opens up with our SAS squad helicoptering through the Bering Strait to intercept an Estonian civilian cargo ship hauling a suspicious but unidentified bit of cargo. As the name of the mission suggests, we are kicking right off into weird territory and legality with this mission, but let's get into it. We fly in under the cover of night while Captain Price aura farms. We then rappel down onto the deck of the ship, somehow completely unnoticed, and immediately open fire on the unarmed civilian crew. Is this ship carrying suspicious cargo that our military has deemed important? Yes. Have the good guy governments decided unilaterally that whoever is on this ship is deserving of death? Also, yes. Does that suddenly make it right? No, not in my opinion. These are civilian sailors who have not been proven with the details presented in the game for me to assign irredeemable terminal guilt. So, when dusting anyone without a weapon on this ship, I'm calling that a war crime.
3. Bridge secure. Last call.
We also kill 2 guards who are at this point only guilty of sleeping with their boots and leather gloves on. These men are considered hors de combat as they are fully unconscious at the time of our hostile action. Now, before you all jump into the comments and say, they're all wearing Chi-Com chest rigs and they have clearly visible holsters. Yeah, I can see that, but I think that the developers just didn't want or have time to make character models for the ship's crew and instead just reused standard Russian soldier models. And while I think the guards encountered later in this mission make sense to be armed, in reality the main crew of this vessel wouldn't be armed to the teeth and should instead look more like this. But if they did, then it would look really problematic for the good guys to be wasting a bunch of fellas in high visibility vests and hard hats. Honestly, this is exactly the kind of subtle glossing over of reality and moral sanitization that's really sneaky in these games, and it's easy to be like, oh well, they deserved it. And to further complicate things, the rules around international waters are really complex, but the Bering Strait is controlled in equal parts by the United States and Russia. So it then makes it extra messy to have British Special Forces being the ones carrying out this assault on an Estonian ship, which means this involves at minimum 4 different nations in a hostile action. Anyways, we move out onto the sloppily cargo deck and encounter actual armed guards that we promptly kill with just cause.
Target neutralized. Tango down.
Moving further up, a bunch of soldiers appear on the bridge and mount some machine guns to try and fire on us, but our helicopter sweeps the minigun across the second floor and removes that threat very quickly. With a brief Aliens reference,
I'll have to keep this.
For close encounters.
we descend below decks, clearing out more guards and working our way deeper into the cargo hold.
Tango down.
The last guard killed, we reach the shipping container that we were tipped off about. Popping open the doors, we are shown the worst case scenario. A large crate covered in nuclear markings, crackling our Geiger counter with radiation spillover. We had intel that there was something serious on this cargo ship, but this is next level. Suspicious Russians guarding a nuclear device set for delivery to the Middle East? We fully intend to secure the entire container, but then we're informed of 2 mysterious fighter jets screaming into the area to attack the cargo ship, so we just grab the shipping manifest and start to run topside. Just as we start to leave the ship, it gets smoked by those unidentified planes. Which, for the insanity of this kind of strike, again in international waters and deeply complicated by the number of countries at play here, that's another war crime. Sticking with the classic COD trope, we get knocked down, but Captain Price picks us back up, and we haul ass to get off of this sinking ship. We scramble our way to the top deck and leap onto our conveniently not shot down by fighter planes helicopter, and fly away as the cargo ship is swallowed up by the Bering Sea into a splash of the game's title card. As we zoom out from the cargo ship, we track across the planet into Saudi Arabia, where we are put behind the eyes of President Al-Fulani, who is being forced from his home while the country undergoes a violent overthrow of its government. As we're dragged to a random car, we can see military forces all over the city, detaining civilians, fast roping from helicopters, and generally being violent. We're tossed into the filthy car with Niko Bellic from Grand Theft Auto 4, and then we get cracked in the head with the butt of a gun. Since our hands are bound and we're unarmed and defenseless, this also falls under the Order to Combat rules, as we are under the control of an adverse party and we can't do anything about it. As our head clears, we are driven through the city, listening to Al-Assad give a speech about why he's taking control of the country, and presumably more of the Middle East. During the drive, we are shown the consequences of a violent government takeover, with Op 4 forces continuing to detain, assault, and kill civilians all across the city, presumably with help from Russian nationalists considering Tracksuit Tommy's presence and the vast number of Hind helicopters, BMPs, and tanks. Everything we see in this sequence falls under a handful of categories that are in direct violations of international law. Rule 2, violence aimed at spreading terror among the civilian population. Rule 89, violence to life, helpfully adding that murder is prohibited. Rule 98, enforced disappearance is prohibited. Civilians are being terrorized, detained, and killed all over the city and country for siding with the existing government. These are huge, sweeping violations. At one point, we even see some civilians taking up arms to fight back against the coup, but they're quickly killed. However, this leaves us in a really strange spot, as they do lose their protected civilian status when taking up weapons. It's hard to blame them for doing so given the situation, but their deaths aren't crimes in the sense of international law. If we refer back to Rule 6, civilians are protected against attack unless they take a direct part in hostilities. We pull through an alley only to see the Op 4 soldiers lining people up against a wall, and with that final brutal display, we are dragged from the car again and pulled into an arena of sorts while Al-Assad is broadcasting his takeover live on television. We meet both of our main villains here for a split second before Al-Assad takes a Desert Eagle and... After Al-Fulani's assassination, we fall back into control of SOAP following Captain Price and Gaz as they discuss the imminent American invasion of the Middle East. Our concerns lie in Russia, however, as the informant that tipped us off about that nuke on the cargo ship has been captured and is likely being tortured for information, all in the midst of the start of a Russian civil war. We work our way in to meet up with the loyalist Russian forces. While we're doing that, we kill a few ultranationalist soldiers standing guard on our way into the mission area. We move up to the next guard post, and Gaz tells us,
So, plant some claymores in front of the door.
the second this claymore went off, I knew I had a lot of research in front of me because, and this isn't going to shock anyone, I'm calling this a war crime. First off, Gaz is a sicko for telling us to use a claymore in this situation when we could just as easily shoot through the wall and show off the new bullet penetration mechanics developed for this game. Second, claymores are anti-personnel mines, little rectangles of death in C4 that shoot hundreds of ball bearings out in a fan in front of the device. I've had to say it time and time again in this series, but anti-personnel mines are bad and disgusting and wrong. Well, except for this little guy that my wife made that we actually haven't named yet.
Hi, I'm just a little war crime.
But spooky, I hear you cry out. This is a modern game, in a modern setting, and I know for a fact that the United States still uses claymore mines in combat and for area denial. Ron Swanson even has one on his desk in Parks and Rec. And yes, you would be correct that to this day, the United States military still uses claymore mines in conflicts. But you'll also take note that we aren't currently playing as the United States. We're under the laws of the United Kingdom right now. Now, I don't have time in this spiel to talk all about the ways that the United States creates loopholes for itself from international law, but in this instance, there is a clear distinction. The United Kingdom ratified its participation in the Ottawa Treaty, that's the convention that banned the use of anti-personnel mines and victim-triggered weapons, in 1998. The United States conspicuously has never chosen to sign or ratify this treaty, meaning that technically, the US is not held by international law to not use landmines like this. But even in spite of that fact, we feel the need to do additional hand-wringing, saying that claymores aren't always a victim-triggered weapon, and since it can be manually detonated, it's less indiscriminate, or more discriminate. The soldier with the boom button can discriminate. You know what? Never mind. All that being said, any United Kingdom soldiers at this point should not be using claymore mines, especially in the victim-triggered configuration. It's a war crime. We're moving on. Entering into the next area, we link up with Sergeant Kamarov and his team of sneaky good Russians. He tells us that the bad Russians have been firing rockets into the civilian areas nearby, killing hundreds of innocent people. Our job is to provide sniper cover for the initial assault in the enemy area, setting up on a ridge line where we can see the rockets firing off into the cities in the distance.
Sniper team in position. Guys, cover the left flank.
Roger, covering left flank.
The attack starts and we blast away at dozens of soldiers. Importantly, the rocket trucks are destroyed so that they can no longer fire into the civilian areas.
The building.
Helicopters start to drop in reinforcements even further up the ridgeline, so we need to fight those guys back too. Before we do that, I do shoot and wound one final Russian soldier in the initial area. And now, before my editor gets too stressed out, Call of Duty 4 changed the wounded soldier animations from Call of Duty 2's mixture of armed and unarmed to basically always having them go into a final stand mode, either pulling a sidearm or a grenade. And that means that my putting a watermelon-sized hole in this guy, that's allowable. We noob-tube the helicopter troops, and then we have to return to sniping enemy reinforcements in the village down below. Price and Gaz are starting to think that Kamarov is withholding Nikolai's location from us to extract more support in the fight than we have the time to offer. As we look over the village, Kamarov tries to get us to do even more sniping for him.
With a little bit more of your sniper support, we are sure to be victorious.
But Price and Gaz are over it, so we encourage Kamarov to tell us where Nikolai is.
Enough sniping. Where is the informant?
While Kamarov pouts in the corner, we rappel down into the village to haul ass to where Nikolai is being held. After fighting through just a few more Russians, we finally get to the house at the back of the village where our informant is being held.
Guys, go around to the back and cut the power. So, get ready.
We cut the power, blacking out the house and moving through, clearing the remaining disoriented and terrified soldiers. With the house cleared, we finally find Nikolai, who has clearly had the shit kicked out of him in an attempt to learn who he was informing. While it's not explicitly shown here, torture remains a human rights violation, and therefore we will count the treatment of Nikolai as a war crime. Fortunately, Nikolai is tough as hell, so he grabs a gun and jogs out with us to the extraction helicopter. Just before the mission fades to black, he gives us even more insight that the soon-to-happen American attack on al-Assad in the Middle East is likely to not go well.
The Americans are making mistakes. They will never take al-Assad alive.
But before we jump to the next mission, you know what is going well? This series. Rather than doing a sponsored segment, I just wanted to stop and say thank you to everyone who's tuned in and engaged with these videos so far. Your thoughtful encouragement and support has been super encouraging and honestly really gratifying. Whether you're a longtime fan of the series or a first-time viewer, please consider hitting that subscribe button because I've got something on offer for all of you. Outside of making videos, I've also been live streaming on Twitch and YouTube for a really long time. For me, it's just a fun environment where I can speak and connect more casually, and I can engage with a variety of games and other stuff that I also feel like doing. It's funny, but I actually haven't streamed any Call of Duty content since I started way back in 2020. But when we hit 10,000 subscribers, I will do something I've never done before. I will play World at War on Veteran for as long as I can psychologically endure it. I love World at War, and this will be a chance to tune in and ask me all sorts of questions while I die to insane grenade spam. So ring that bell, please. It helps us a lot here. Okay, let's get back to the video. Our perspective swoops our control from SOAP to United States Marine Sergeant named Paul Jackson, flying in with an absolutely insane invasion force. We've got intel that Al-Assad is at a fixed location, so we're bum rushing the town to try and capture him. As we fly in, it seems like the entire city is shooting at us as we move to our landing zone. We fast rope in, and it's amazing how quickly the Marines are able to lock down the area. We stack up and breach into a building, clearing out the basement, which is a full weapons stash. After securing the basement, I help myself to a shotgun on the table, just in case we need to do a little bit more room clearing. I was just trying to be a silly little guy in the Call of Duty 3 video where I started counting shotgun kills as war crimes. At least until the end of the video. If you watched all the way, I pulled them all off. Since their use in wartime has historically been pretty controversial. However, shotguns are much less pervasive in Call of Duty 4, so for the sake of pacing, we won't be counting them this time, even if it was just for a joke. As we step out on the other side of the building, we see that a squad of Marines who were supposed to help clear that building were ambushed and killed before they could even breach in. Our search for Al-Assad now shifts to a television station that he's sending a broadcast from. Fighting to get to that television station is intense, with OPFOR soldiers appearing in every alley and across dozens of rooftops. During an early part of this rolling firefight, I wound and then shotgun blast an enemy soldier who is no longer taking further aggressive action and instead just trying to crawl away from me. However, karma instantly catches up with me as I run into a car that explodes and then kills me. Reloading the checkpoint, I take a different route and flank half a dozen enemies and mag dump the entire squad. The fighting in this city is absolute chaos with no clear front line, and Marines and OPFOR troops are constantly getting intermixed. An enemy technical rolls up, but fortunately we quickly remove that as a threat. The battle to the TV station is frenetic, but it's all above board, at least as far as international law is concerned, and we link up with more Marines to breach and secure the location. Fighting really picks up inside the station as we enter the main production room with waves of OPFOR rolling into the small arena space, shooting off RPGs all over the place. With that space cleared, we push to the second floor where the recording studio and Al-Assad are. Some tanks roll by because the battle for the city is still fully underway, and we link up with fan favorite Staff Sergeant Griggs and his squad to move to capture Al-Assad. As we stack up on the door to the studio, we can hear voices on the other side. Dunkelberger here opens the door with a shotgun, just like the Founding Fathers intended, and we push in only to find...
Room clear!
He's not here.
Al-Assad is not here, and that we've been tricked. But he'll have to wait as we're issued new orders and we fade into the next mission. Our new assignment has us tasked with moving to and reinforcing an M1A2 Abrams tank nicknamed War Pig that's gotten stuck in a bog and is being rushed by OPFOR troops. Our squad moves up the main freeway where we are rapidly and violently ambushed from a block of half-destroyed apartments. We run off the freeway and flank into the blown open side of the apartment building, and as we move up the stairwell with Private Roysowitz, he gets jumped and likely thrown into his own QuickTime event. Making up for past injustices, I quickly shoot the enemy, but Roysowitz, in a very familiar fit of fear and anger, puts a few more bullets into the dead soldier's body. Our flank proves successful, and we take a mounted enemy machine gun to blast the rest away so we can keep working towards the tank. Dozens more OPFOR are in the parking lot behind the apartment, and while we work to suppress and eliminate them, a number of enemy armored vehicles and infantry start moving up on the overpass. We had a guy moving forward with an anti-tank javelin launcher, but he dies as soon as he spawns in, so naturally we have to be the ones to do all of the work. The javelin launcher is a fascinating, horrific piece of wildly expensive technology that locks onto the heat signature of an enemy vehicle, fires an anti-tank rocket that flies straight up and then drops onto the significantly less armored top of a tank. It's effective, brutal, and the price tag alone paints a picture of why my geriatric elected officials listen to Raytheon instead of me. But the Javelin allows us to quickly scrap all of the tanks on the freeway, and we keep moving onward to rescue our tank. Our squad moves through a shanty town underneath the overpass, and we can see rockets and tracers everywhere as Warpig and a small squad of remaining Marines holds off the attacking enemies. We round the corner and finally get our first good look at Warpig, and now you're definitely thinking that it's time to get tanked. But COD 4 will not put us behind the controls of any ground vehicles, actually, so standing around Warpig is the closest that we'll get. The remaining Marines fight desperately to keep wave after wave of Op-4 from getting too close to the tank. It's implied that there are soldiers strapped with detonation packs as well, although you don't see any in my gameplay. The sky is lit by flares and gunfire, but we manage to hold our perimeter until the opposing forces... Oh my god, that's what Op-4 stands for, isn't it? The enemy troops eventually need to stop and regroup for another attack. Lieutenant Vasquez tries to call in air support, but there's a ZPU anti-air gun nearby that needs to be gotten rid of before we can risk calling in the helicopters. As the main character, we run off and get some C4 planted on the gun so that we can in turn plant a beacon for the Cobra attack helicopters to swoop in and lay waste to the building that the enemies are massing in. With that demolition done, we get a moment to catch our breath and cluster around the tank to look at Vasquez's drawings to make a plan for the guaranteed counterattack. Before we get to experience the resolution to Warpig's drama, it's time to check back in with Price and Company trying to fly out of Russia with Nikolai.
What the bloody hell is that?
Huh?
Incoming missile. Hang on!
Just as the mission fades in, a SAM site launches a missile at the helicopter and shoots us down. How anybody survives this crash landing is wild to me. We wake up some distance from the wreckage and miraculously have all of our bones and internal organs intact. However, plot armor didn't save the pilots or some of our SAS squad that we clown carred into this one helicopter. There's no time to waste on mourning the dead as we need to get clear of the crash before the bad guys find us. As we run up the road, Command tells us that an AC-130 is flying in to protect our exfil. And I don't even know where to begin on how much of an international incident and/or act of war all of this would be. British Special Forces working directly with one side of a civil war and then getting shot down with multiple casualties, only to then have an American warplane also breach that same airspace? I truly don't know how to measure any of this, so let's just get back to sneaking through some farm fields. Fleeing the crash site, our squad holds up in the shed of a farmhouse where we see the bad Russians interrogating an old farmer whose field we crashed in. The soldiers are being super aggressive for no real discernible reason, and if we wait too long to engage... Now, I shouldn't need to explain why that's bad, so let's just rewind and kill these guys before that happens. Fortunately, that quick firefight doesn't attract too much attention, so it's back to running and sneaking through fields until we get spotted trying to get into the basement of a house. This time, the firefight goes on much longer and turns into a running, fighting, leapfrogging effort of holding enemy troops at bay while still trying to move forward. At one point, the Russians even sick attack dogs on us, and while I hate that we have to fight dogs as enemies in this game, there's nothing prohibiting the use of them in war. But with all that being said, we are going to try and edit around any fighting with the attack dogs because as someone with 3 dogs of my own, I don't like it, and I don't want to have to keep thinking about it. Another lengthy firefight behind us, we return to sneaking through fields because somehow the entire countryside is still unaware of where we are.
What was that? That's nothing.
And despite my best efforts to go through this area undetected, it seems like it's scripted that we get spotted, so here we go, killing again. We battle through greenhouses and alleyways and eventually find an unlimited pile of Stinger missiles conveniently located in a barn that we use to finally shoot down the helicopter that has been hunting us for the entire level. With all that behind us, our squad moves up to a roadblock of Russian armor just to hear that the AC-130 has finally entered the airspace. With an icy transactional tone, the AC-130 confirms its targets and rains down an insane amount of death upon the unsuspecting Russians. We hoot, we holler, and I turn a dazed, wounded, but still armed soldier inside out with a shotgun before we fade to the next and second most iconic mission in Call of Duty 4. Death from above, I think, is truly what puts the modern in modern warfare for this game. We zoom up 7,000 feet into the gunner seat of, ironically, an ACU-130 Spooky, misidentified here as a Spectre-class gunship. The next 10 minutes of gameplay are admittedly pretty badass. But there is still something about unleashing death and the horrors of war from a television screen to the sterile detached callouts from your crewmates that, as an older person, causes some eerie discomfort that I didn't recognize back in 2007 as a dumb kid. Because of our separation from the battlefield, however, there is more time to confirm and adhere to rules of engagement. So, for example, we're told not to fire on the town's church even as a dozen enemy troops that were occupying run out to attack Price's squad.
You are not authorized to level the church. Do not fire directly on the church. Personnel coming out of the church.
With insane precision, we can lob shells directly on top of soldiers in cover, and all of this is fully permissible since it's just high explosive artillery. See? I told you we'd change our methodology. Everything is clinical right down to our surgical aim and destruction of enemy infantry until some civilians are spotted driving down the main highway. Price and company stop them and steal the vehicles, hoping to speed up their exfil from the area. Now, a handful of you brought this up during the Call of Duty 1 video where your squad steals a French civilian car to deliver a message to another unit. I thought nothing of it at the time, but after reading your comments, which I always try to do, and doing some more research, I found that that is a violation of the rules of war for soldiers to use civilian vehicles in a combat zone, as it's deceiving of who they really are and what they're doing.
It's pissed. That's a nice truck. Nah, he's scared shitless.
With the squad moving faster in vehicles, we continue to effortlessly kill dozens of enemy troops until friendly helicopters arrive to extract our ground forces. As the mission succeeds, we sign off from the AC-130 with one final, callous, kinda gross one-liner.
This is gonna be one hell of a highlight reel. Yeah, I heard that.
Jumping back to the Middle East, WWII is back up and running, and we are simultaneously fighting back a fresh attack from OPFOR soldiers and trying to get the tank back to where it needs to be. We fight hard even as enemy helicopters swoop in and drop more soldiers off. With the initial counterattack beaten back, we work in tandem with the tank to move up to the next block, which presents us with the worst nightmare for armor in urban combat. One road flanked by buildings on both sides with plenty of hiding spots for enemy soldiers.
Bravo 6, possible ambush area up front. We'll move up when you clear the area ahead of us.
While the Marines protect the tank's flanks, it fires shots into the various enemy-occupied buildings to remove cover and try to eliminate the RPG crews. And while my hearing loss won't be considered service-related, there's a lot of work to do to move forward. I push through the various buildings and clear them out so that the tank can roll forward without fear of ambush. The fighting is chaotic and frenzied, and it takes a long time to secure any area well enough for the tank to move even a little bit forward. We eventually push up to the next block just as enemy reinforcements and a new tank roll up.
Hold right here! Enemy tank coming up the road!
Fortunately, superior technology wins the day as WWII can use its thermal imaging to spot the enemy armor through a wall, and it kills it without ever revealing itself to the older Russian tank model.
Taking the shot.
And with that, we have gotten as tanked as we're allowed to for the runtime of Modern Warfare. We rush onto a helicopter with new intel on Al-Assad's location, and we want to be the ones to get the glory of capturing him. Our flight of helicopters tears into the space of the capital city. We're sitting behind the trigger of a Mark 19 belt-fed grenade launcher and almost immediately have to start lobbing explosives at anybody running around. Every apartment building is swarming with soldiers, anti-air guns, and more. We can't confirm civilian presence in any of these residential areas, but the attack by US forces in the city is so sudden that it's hard not to think that there are more people mixed into this battle than the game would have you believe. After laying waste to the landing zone, we drop off about half of our squad to pursue Al-Assad, and the rest of us get tasked with bailing out a group of Marines that got pinned down on the initial push into the city. Touching down, we scramble into an alley to run to the construction site our allies are at. There are OPFOR soldiers all over the place as we're trying to move in. Linking up on the second floor, our personal attack chopper rejoins us and provides cover as we all fight to our evac zone. As we go, one of our squad mates gets jumped and judo throws an enemy to the ground, and we both mag dump him in desperation to escape. On reboarding the helicopter, we get the message that an active nuclear device has been found, and ground troops are trying to secure it.
We have a situation here. Over. Go ahead, Command. Over. SEAL Team 6 has located a possible nuclear device at Al-Assad's palace to the west.
No sooner do we get that message than...
We're hit! We're hit! I've lost the tail rotor! Mayday! Mayday! This is deadly going in hard! We're going down.
Marines, famously, leave no one behind, so we set down and rush to the wrecked Cobra to rescue our pilot, fully knowing the risks that if anything goes wrong, we're in the danger zone of a suspected nuclear bomb.
Copy 2-5, be advised, you will not be at a safe distance in the event that nuke goes off. Do you understand? Roger that. We know what we're getting into. Advancing parallel southwest of your position towards the crash site. We got 90 seconds, Jackson. Get the pilot. No one gets left behind.
We grab the pilot and boogie to get her back into the chopper.
Outlaw, this is command. We have a probable nuclear threat in the capital. Proceed to the minimum safe distance until the all clear is given.
We're making what seems like a clean, if somewhat harried escape when...
Everyone hang on!
The nuclear explosion in shock and awe is one of the most iconic and disturbing moments in Call of Duty history. A nuclear weapon being used in modern conflict is a nightmare-level scenario. The destruction it wreaks, the existential fear it inspires, it's all horrific. While use of nuclear weapons in warfare has not been categorically banned or deemed a full violation of the rules of war, it is also the general understanding and consensus that under a number of other international laws and treaties that using or even threatening to use a nuclear weapon would break those laws with dire consequences. Consequences dire enough to make me feel comfortable labeling this act as a war crime. Against all odds, our protagonist Paul Jackson survived the initial nuclear blast, the helicopter crash, and even somehow managed not to go instantly blind despite staring at the detonation. We crawl from the wreckage, listening to radio chatter reporting the effects of the bomb going off.
Fallout predicted within a radius of 7.4 miles. Epicenter located at B05.
We stumble past our squad and the rescued helicopter pilot, who are all succumbing to their injuries and an insane dosage of radiation, all while the mushroom cloud towers miles above us. Fall to the ground again, and Paul Jackson becomes the first Call of Duty protagonist to die while the player is in control. But Paul Jackson and our helicopter crew are far from the only casualties of this explosion. In fact, I've determined that this bomb caused at least 86,220 deaths almost instantly, along with hundreds of thousands of severe injuries following that as well. I spent a ton of time and research on these two short levels in Modern Warfare for the sake of this video, so much so that I couldn't even condense all of my research into a concise way here. So I went and made a whole video laying out how I determined the devastation of this nuclear blast. You can feel free to pop it open in another tab from the card above me, or out of the description, or you can also just let it play when you get to the end of this video, since I'll have it linked there as well. But now, after this major world-changing event, we need to see what the immediate response is. With Jackson dead, our control shifts permanently back over to SOAP, where the SAS squad has their own lead on Al-Assad, as they're convinced that he wouldn't blow himself up with the nuclear bomb. So we move into a small village in Azerbaijan with some backup from Kamarov soldiers. Again, fictional geopolitics aren't my forte, but it seems like we're playing in international incident territory, hunting down a Middle Eastern leader as a British soldier with the help of the Russian military and a third independent nation, not to mention the additional subtext of Al-Assad's ultranationalist Russian guards slaughtering the Azerbaijani village's civilians. And while we don't see it explicitly depicted or their bodies, we do hear the civilians screaming and gunfire. We spend this mission clearing house to house in the village, trying to locate and secure the safe house that we believe Al-Assad to be in. This is actually one of my favorite missions in Call of Duty 4, and I think it's a little underrated. We aren't going to see any war crimes occur in the house clearing, but I do like having the option to tackle each house as I please, and the gameplay variety of calling in the helicopter support, as well as the numerous weapons, and the ability to get into each house from multiple angles. After sweeping the village, we approach a farm set at the back of the area and move up. Surely, if Al-Assad is anywhere, he's gotta be in here.
Remember, we want Al-Assad alive. He's no good to us dead.
Our squad approaches the door, tosses a flashbang in, and Price solos Al-Assad's bodyguards and pummels the fuck out of him. Some time clearly passes, and we fade back into Price torturing Al-Assad, trying to force information out of him. Here's the deal. Even if we really think that Al-Assad deserves to suffer for what he's done, which, spoilers for Modern Warfare 2 and 3, Makarov is the one who sets off the nuclear explosion, leaving Al-Assad to take the blame. Torture is wrong and remains wholly ineffective to get clear, concise, actionable information as demonstrated when the torture continues only for Al-Assad's phone to ring. Price gets the answers he needs independently from the torture and then goes ahead and summarily executes Al-Assad.
Who was that, sir?
Zakhaev.
This then sends us into a flashback about the true antagonist of Call of Duty 4 with one of the most legendary first-person shooter missions of all time. We're going back in time to 1996 and into the boots of a young Captain Price on a covert operation to Chernobyl to try and stop, meaning kill, Imran Zakhaev so he doesn't get his hands on nuclear material. During the intro cutscene, Price drops some interesting language, saying,
It was the first time our government had authorized an assassination order since the Second World War.
Surprising no one at this point, the history of military-ordered assassinations, or, as we've since tried to workshop, targeted killings, are controversial undertaking and present a challenging legal gray area. We don't have time for a deep dive in this video, but in general, for an assassination order like this to pass review in international law, a few key measures have to be met first. 1. The nation where the killing is set to take place must cooperate and consent with the military operation. 2. There must be an ongoing military conflict. 3. The target has to have taken up arms. 4. The target has to be clearly and positively identified. 5. There must be no viable means of arrest, capture, or other non-lethal methods. 6. The decision to authorize the kill must be made by senior political leaders like a Congress or a parliament. So, while all Ghillied Up checks some of the boxes, it doesn't hit everything, at least not for sure. Plus, beyond the other observed shortcomings of the action, I personally stand by the American Civil Liberties Union assessment that program of targeted killing far from any battlefield without charge or trial violates the constitutional guarantee of due process. It also violates international law, under which lethal force may be used outside armed conflict zones only as a last resort to prevent imminent threats, when non-lethal means are not available. Targeting people who are suspected of terrorism for execution far from any war zone turns the whole world into a battlefield. But enough of that nerd shit. We need to follow a Scotsman dressed as a shrub through an irradiated wasteland, and we also need to rack up a body count far beyond that of just our primary targets. Here's the deal through and through. This mission fucking rips, dude, and it remains so cool and iconic with just immaculate vibes and pacing. All Ghillied Up is one of the greatest of all time. We follow Captain McMillan through fields, around shambles of houses, and through and past Russian ultranationalist patrols. I won't count every single random guy we dust as a criminal act, despite the dubious legality of the entire mission, since I don't want to juice the counter, but just know that was a really tough call for me to make.
Just let him pass. You're cool. Okay.
We approach an old church that has a sniper standing guard in the tower, and I'm sure you think I'm going to say that this isn't permissible, but this whole area has been abandoned for years at this point, and this is no longer a functioning religious structure. It's just another deteriorating building. We pop him and we move even further forward into what even 18 years later remains an incredibly butt-clenching sequence. A hind helicopter flies above us, and while we aren't spotted, we try to lay low while moving into an open field. We no sooner hop over an old pipeline and a full armored column crests the hill. Hitting the deck, we have to alternate between sitting still as soldiers pass within inches of us, and slowly and subtly moving to avoid being crushed underneath the treads of the BMPs. The patrol passes and I finally loosen my butthole, and we continue to move to our overlooked position. Just past where we avoided the patrol, we spot some soldiers in a junkyard dumping the corpses of their former comrades purged in a loyalty test. This feels quintessentially like evil Russian activities, and the way a lot of these military purges have been conducted in the past do violate typical laws, processes, and human rights. So, what the hell? Let's add some to the board.
Taking him out without alerting the rest isn't going to be easy, but then again, neither is sneaking past them. You're cool.
The first time ever in playing this mission, I end up choosing to sneak past this group as they're occupied with their icky chores, and because my route was a little cheesy by the game standard, I end up having to wait for McMillan to catch up.
We work as a team, remember? Wait for me.
As we move forward, McMillan feels the need to show off.
Oi, Susie, huh?
That's how it's done.
And I am totally convinced that this Russian lived and spends the rest of his life having nightmares like this. Our way is blocked by a massive convoy, so we choose to take the ballsiest and most direct path imaginable, crawling underneath a line of trucks until we get where we're going. My butthole's just starting to unclench again, and I have to sweep a sniper off of a fire escape in order to move forward without getting spotted. For the sake of pacing and my recording, I do not shoot the feral dog that is secretly a Legend of Zelda Flock of Cuckoo's Easter egg, and instead let McMillan say this trailer-worthy line.
50,000 people used to live in the city. Now it's a ghost town. Never seen anything like it.
We finally reach our overlook point and hurry up and wait for Zakhaev to show up.
There's the hotel. We should be able to observe the exchange from the top floor up there. Let's move.
We lie in wait for actual days until Zakhaev and his goons finally show up to do their exchange of nuclear fuel rods for gold bars. We've been waiting here long enough that Macmillan has somehow constructed a Barrett 50 caliber rifle out of twigs and old furniture. I put my eye to the scope so that I can confirm that Zakhaev is at the meeting.
The wind's getting a bit choppy. You can compensate for it, or you can wait it out.
While scanning the area for Zakhaev, I also lay eyes on an as-of-yet unknown series antagonist, Vladimir Makarov. Panning back over to Zakhaev, I patiently wait for the optimal shot, only to have our line of sight briefly interrupted.
Where did he come from?
That delay forces us to rush our shot, tearing off Zakhaev's arm instead of just killing him outright, so that I can kill Makarov and cause a time paradox, meaning that I don't actually have to play Modern Warfare 2 or Modern Warfare 3 for this series. I'm just kidding. I undo that paradox, reload a checkpoint, and stick with the canonical timeline. I blow off Zakhaev's arm again, dome the helicopter pilot again, and then Macmillan and I have to run like hell to get out of our position. We have a limited amount of time to get to our extraction point, so our fighting retreat is messy, so much so that I don't have time to wait for this wounded guy to prove that he's still dangerous to me or not. We shake our pursuers by running into an old block of apartments, which is also one of my favorite maps from the OG multiplayer days. A squad of Russians gets close to where we're moving, and Macmillan, who is a certified sicko like Gaz, tells us to plant a claymore at the entrance of the apartment that we're hiding in.
Quick, plant the claymore by the door up ahead.
But, unlike Gaz, Macmillan is actually within the bounds of law, with both ordering this and having claymores in our kit, since this mission takes place before the United Kingdom signed the Ottawa Treaty. It's still gross, but this little guy gets to do his job with less guilt today.
Hi. This is actually not a war crime.
After removing the foot soldiers chasing us, an attack helicopter appears out of nowhere. We blast away at its rotors and somehow do more damage with those shots than my grenade launcher did earlier in the campaign, and the aircraft catastrophically loses control. Macmillan makes the mistake of prematurely aura farming and almost gets crushed to death in the ensuing crash. I swear this doesn't usually happen to me. I just got excited. With our ghillie looking a little more gimpy, we dap him up and start carrying him to extract, occasionally dropping him off to fight off waves of soldiers. We get Macmillan through one last building and set up in the area around the Pripyat amusement park's Ferris wheel. Setting Macmillan down on Overwatch, we then place a ridiculous amount of claymores and then proceed to kill just so many dudes until the extraction team shows up. With one final crispy dap, damn! We grab Macmillan, get on the helicopter, and fly away, leaving a mile-high pile of corpses and one severed arm in our wake. Snapping back into the present day, our squad is left waiting for a way to get out of the village where we found Al-Assad, all while knowing that a Russian counterattack is coming. We've had some time to prepare, all illustrated in the intro cutscene, but part of that shows that we've laid dozens of anti-personnel mines to try and create choke points to funnel the reinforcements through. First, it's not 1996 anymore, and second, I guarantee we weren't signposting those mine placements. But I guess we kind of introduced some gray area since the player is the one who will end up manually detonating the mines. You see, I'm confused because the gameplay itself is showing essentially the other function of claymores, but then the cutscene is showing pressure-tripped anti-personnel landmines. You know what? Screw it. I'm calling it a war crime. Fuck landmines. We move into position to ambush the first wave of enemy soldiers. They've walked almost right into the village when we detonate explosives all throughout the woods, including some up in the trees to create additional shrapnel. We fight through the initial waves for a while until they get smart and pop smoke so that they can cover their advance. Falling back to the second line of our retreat, I get on a minigun and a crashed helicopter just as enemy mortars start landing around us and end up destroying the village's church. The minigun easily tears through the next wave of soldiers as well as the helicopters trying to drop in more reinforcements. The fighting retreat is hectic, but we stop in the tavern, sadly not for a pint, but instead to manually set off more explosives to delay the enemy advance. One of our SAS squad mates spots enemy tanks rolling in and then pretty unconvincingly dies. We get orders to run back even further into the barn where Price domed Al-Assad to get another Javelin missile launcher to take care of the armor. How and when this Javelin and extra ammo appeared? Unclear. Grabbing that javelin, I quickly get back outside and I fire 4 mortgages at the tanks. With the tanks gone, the Air Force shows up and we get to cosplay being a Helldiver and choose where those airstrikes target.
Unleashing democracy.
This is giga convenient timing as our extraction location gets moved from the barn to the bottom of the hill where we started the first mission in this area. So our retreat becomes an advance of sorts as we sprint back down the hill we ran up, fighting all the way. Sticking with my Helldiver's bit, I call in one more airstrike right on the extraction zone as we fly away and into the next mission. Now that we know that Zakhaev is still alive, our mission changes to finding a way to track him down and hold him accountable. And the easiest way to get to him seems to be tracking down his tracksuit and presumably bowling, loving son. We start running down the intel on Viktor Zakhaev and... wait a minute, who took this picture? Did we scrape this off of his MySpace? Our combined force of Russians, SAS, and Marines sneaks through a junkyard to an ultranationalist checkpoint. And we ambush the guards standing watch. With them eliminated, we start to clear the bodies and prepare to commit a fresh set of war crimes.
Alright, let's get this place sorted out. Change into the enemy uniforms and douse the fires. Kamarov, I need your men on the ground if the drivers start asking questions. Just keep them busy until we locate Zakhaev's son.
We talked about this way back in Call of Duty 1, but wearing an enemy uniform in order to deceive and then take hostile action against them falls under a subset of rules around perfidy where making improper use of the flag or of the military insignia and uniform of the enemy constitutes a war crime in international armed conflicts when it results in death or serious personal injury. And, well, our actions will be causing a lot of death and personal injury.
Man, you look like a clown in that outfit. Good thing you're up here, because you look nothing like a Russian.
The convoy approaches and we wait to strike until we can positively identify Zakhaev since we don't want to hit him in the crossfire.
Stand by. Smoke 'em.
In a panic, Zakhaev runs his car into our tower and then takes off running at cheat code level speeds. Our concussed ass has to give chase with Griggs in tow, along with helicopter overwatch giving us callouts on Zakhaev's location and where to find the enemy reinforcements. Our chase takes us through back alleys, homes, and apartments in what seems to be an abandoned Russian town. Eventually, we chase tracksuit Timmy to a multi-story fortified apartment block. Our allied helicopter stops passively observing and instead aggressively shreds the 5th floor machine gunners that were pinning us down, allowing us to chase Zakhaev into the building. We get to the top floor, only get pinned down by another mounted machine gun that the helicopter again quickly remedies for us, so we can move on to a now cornered Victor on the rooftop. His hands up in surrender, we slowly move to secure his weapon, only for him to step down, place the gun under his chin, and... Zakhaev knows his son is dead and he is pissed.
Our blood has been spilled on our soil. My blood on their hands.
Using his troops to overtake a nuclear missile silo and threatening to launch the warheads if the UK and US don't withdraw their troops. So, naturally, our team of crack special forces that don't need to sleep halo jump in over the silo location to try and stop a nuclear war. As we land, we realize that Griggs got separated from us, but managed to activate a distress beacon, so we take a quick side quest to find our favorite Marine.
Bravo 6, Griggs just activated his emergency transponder. He's half a click to your southwest. Over.
We encounter and kill some Russian patrols in the misty forests, and then approach a small cluster of buildings that we systematically clear. Now, when I was younger, I could never clear the soldiers fast enough outdoors to prevent these attack dogs from jumping me and turning rescuing Griggs into a much longer fight. But if you're fast and use a suppressed weapon, you can avoid a whole chunk of conflict. Since I accomplished that, we start clearing the final house and we can hear Griggs reciting his name and serial number. Typically, this has been a series indicator for this guy is getting the brakes beaten off of him. But if you look at this transcript of the mission, we can see that the Russians are still playing diplomatically in this interrogation and are only about to lose patience and escalate to cutting Griggs up with a hacksaw as we approach. We quickly move upstairs and stack on the door, bursting in to rescue Griggs. While he's fine, this room has clearly been used for nefarious things before, so let's toss a war crime on the board just because of the overwhelming evidence soaking into the floorboards in yesterday's newspaper. We cut Griggs loose and start rushing to the complex where the missile silos are. In order to breach the facility, we need to cut the power, and the most expedient method being blowing up an entire chunk of the electrical grid. Normally, I would make a stronger argument that dropping this whole tower would be wrong, but this is a fully militarized area, so no civilians should be affected by the power going out in the middle of an Eastern European winter, which is a real criminal tactic being employed in our contemporary world, in spite of that being a flagrant violation of international law. We cut the fence with a science experiment, Gaz falls on his ass, and we all start battling through the guard posts that are around the launch site. After wiping out one last caravan of enemy forces, our squad is able to move up into the main facility. An American sniper team meets us on the outskirts of the facility to report on their observations. No sooner do we start to debrief with them when...
Made it. We'll give you sniper cover once you're inside the perimeter. What the hell is that?
We got a problem here! There's another one!
Yeah, that's right. Zakhaev launches 2 intercontinental ballistic missiles, and after seeing the damage that the crude bomb in Shock and Awe did, you know that some real military warheads being in the air is a very bad thing. So it's time for us to get into the launch control center and abort these weapons before they can land on their target. In the intro, the nuclear missiles are shown to be MIRV ICBMs, which means that each missile is actually armed with 6 550 kiloton warheads that will deploy independently and guide themselves to their final targets. That means that 12 550 kiloton explosions are currently en route to the east coast of the United States, with a projected initial death toll of over 41 million people. That, if we fail, would mean that Modern Warfare 2 and Fallout 3 would be the same game. This is an apocalypse scenario that I could not comprehend playing this game in 2007, mostly because I would skip the mission intro screens. We have a very limited time to fight into the launch facility, so we violently fly through all of the Russians on the surface who are guarding the launch site. Everything in this is above board and within the bounds of international law. Recording for this video, I think I actually have my fastest completion time of this level at just 5 minutes of gameplay. When I was younger, I would always get hung up blowing up the BMP-3 armored vehicles, but this time I just snagged an RPG rather than messing around with planting C4 on them directly. With the Russians out of the way and a dozen more missiles getting armed and prepped for launch, we cut our way into an exhaust vent and rappel in to stop the bad guys. No fighting in the war room, a fun film reference for all my Kubrick heads out there.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Opens with Soap, Price, and Griggs funneling through an air vent to get deeper into the launch facility to find the control room to stop the nukes while teams of Marines assault from other angles trying to do the same thing. As we land down in a locker room, we see the bodies of dead loyalist Russians littered throughout the facility, with a lot of them kind of looking like they were executed. Now, I was initially going to count each of these dead guys as war crimes since none of them appear to be armed, but the reality is far more likely that they were killed fighting to defend the location, and then the ultranationalists took their weapons after the fact as good operational security. With the abort codes in hand, we race against the clock to get through the enemies blocking our way from disarming the nukes. We battle our way through nondescript concrete hallways and storage areas until we get to a cluster of interconnected missile bays. No sooner have we gotten to this area and red lights start flashing and a countdown begins. Zakhaev is priming the other missiles for launch as well, tipping a horrific situation into full-blown Armageddon mode. Despite this countdown, tons of ultranationalists remain in the launch base fighting to keep us from moving forward. But with a quick flank, we get past them only for the rockets to start launching. We slam a blast door behind us while the remaining Russians are consumed in a fiery OSHA violation. This is an insane version of friendly fire, but we don't even have time to dwell on the horrors, as we instead are now contending with at least another 4 MIRV ICBMs launching and aimed at the United States. While the clock runs down, we have to agonizingly wait for a second set of blast doors to open behind us.
Oh, you gotta be shitting me.
But with a few more Russians beaten, we approach another nondescript concrete wall that fortunately has the control room on the other side. With some quick coordination with the Marines on the opposite side of the control room, we breach and clear and scramble to use the only keyboard in the room that fortunately is also in English, has a QWERTY layout, and is wirelessly connected to the mainframe or whatever. Luckily, the abort codes work and all of the nukes destroy themselves, landing in the ocean and probably mutating a bunch of fish into future citizens of Bikini Bottom.
Bravo 6, all warheads have been confirmed destroyed in flight. We got a ton of debris, but most of it's landing in the ocean.
Through some cinematic high-def security footage, we see Zakhaev fleeing in a helicopter, and we rush to the enemy motor pool so that we can get away before reinforcements show up to kill us. And with our getaway cars secured, we fade into the final level in Call of Duty 4.
You heard the man, move!
There's an air of general celebration as we all drive away from the missile silo, and instead of sleep, everyone appears to be looking forward to a nice, hot glass of beer.
A beer should be ice cold.
A lager, maybe, or a glass of water like you drink, and a pint of stout.
I'm gonna have to school y'all both when we get back stateside.
My God, England was a mistake. But we should have known that we wouldn't get off that easy as Zakhaev's remaining forces start giving chase. We make some insane merges onto a civilian freeway right at the peak of morning rush hour, and in typical Russian fashion, none of these folks seem to have given a second thought to seeing like 8 missiles launched from the countryside. Much like in Call of Duty 2, we end up in an on-rails fighting car chase, but this time, there are also innocent people getting run off the road, shot at, and blown up. Somehow in the chaos, a fuel truck flips itself over entirely at 90 miles per hour. We are now being relentlessly chased by an attack helicopter as well that is shooting wildly into traffic and destroying critical infrastructure.
Hind at 9 o'clock!
Just when we think that the Hind has given up the chase, it actually swings ahead of us and destroys an entire bridge. We crash, but somehow wake up from our 17th concussion with enough time to scramble off the crumbling remains. Civilian cars fall into the depths all around us.
It's about to collapse! Get your ass out of there!
We take a defensive position and fight to hold out against waves of ultranationalists while we wait for the extract to roll up. While we fight for our lives, Kamarov radios us to let us know that he's on his way to help as well. But no sooner do we get that good news and whoops, we've got some bad news. A gas tanker blows up right behind us. Burned and disoriented, Griggs grabs and drags us from the wreckage, fighting Alamo style with his helmet securely strapped to his back since he's got plot armor. We look back and see Price wounded and struggling, and then turn to see Zakhaev himself marching up to execute Gaz and some other wounded, disarmed SAS soldiers. Suddenly that helicopter gets blown up just before Zakhaev can Alphalani us, and Price slides us the gun that won World War II. Bad guys are dead, but so are all of our friends. We fade in and out of consciousness as Kamarov runs to our side. We watch Captain Price die as we're airlifted into a helicopter, hearing news reports that the world at large isn't even being told how close they came to not existing.
Confirming a series of nuclear missile tests in central Russia.
Completely unaware of the battles that we fought or the missions that we undertook. As we fade into the credits and my favorite Call of Duty Easter egg, the actual Mark Grigsby, who's a major developer, animator, and the voice for Staff Sergeant Griggs, starts rapping about the development of the game.
Duty 2. The Infinity War team has been developing Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare.
In the mind and time, you'll find my lines combining the twine, underline, rhyme divine. No Heim, you go against me, 249, lift you swiftly.
Like, hell yeah, the song is a banger, but we're all here just wondering what the final war crime count of Modern Warfare is, right? So, let's see how many...
Oh my God.
Wait,
Surely you can't.
What the hell is this?
I'm serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Airplane references? A bonus mission? Mile High Club blew my mind the first time this happened. A post-credit sequence long before Marvel ruined it for all of us. Somehow our unnamed SAS squad is within the cargo hold of a hijacked airliner, and we, for some reason, waited for it to be fully in flight before deploying to stop all of the terrorists. But despite that, this mission is fun and very frenetic. There are a ton of armed enemies on this flight and plenty of evidence that there were civilians as well, but we see very little evidence of them still being on this plane. A ton of insane stuff happens in a very short amount of time in this mission. The side of the plane explodes. We end up killing 30 plus unaffiliated terrorists, and then we clear 2 floors of this huge Russian jet, all while it's losing cabin pressure. As we reach the back of the plane, we encounter the only war crimes that we'll see in Mile High Club, like this hijacker using an unnamed civilian as a human shield. After we paint the room with that guy's cerebellum, we see a bomb in a suitcase behind the VIP. Then we find 3 dead civilians surrounded by water bottles and a lot of citrus. With no time to disarm the bomb, and with the plane already in the process of crashing, we jump out with the VIP in tow, watching as the plane erupts into flames above us as we fade to black for the last time. Now, let's see how the grand war crime total stacked up for Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. And with that, my friends, we have officially counted every war crime in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Next up, we're on to the much requested World at War, which is one of my personal favorites. Honestly, I'm really excited to revisit Treyarch's major glow up, especially after the rush development on Call of Duty 3. Please, remember to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to see me suffer through World at War on Veteran over on my live streams. Also, in the meantime, please check out what my editor is calling his favorite video he's ever worked on, where I did the math on just how devastating that nuke in Shock and Awe was. And finally, a huge shout out to those of you who are directly supporting my content either over on Ko-fi or here with YouTube memberships. That is insanely generous and it's hugely appreciated. It goes a long way to helping the stability of what we're building here. Please, as always, be kind and do good, gamers. I'll see you again in the next one.